Welcome to Central Valley Today. I'm Connie Tran in for Stephanie Bainham. Thank you so much for joining us. Today we're focusing on keeping you and your family healthy and happy. Right now there's warnings up and down the state concerning the rise of rattlesnake encounters. CAL FIRE says the reptiles are starting to come out now that the weather is getting warmer. About a week ago, one woman was rushed to the hospital after she got bit in the popular poppy fields at Lake Elsinore. 3 others were also treated for bites in the area. For one family, they got quite the scare when their dog was bit in their own backyard.
I mean, my heart dropped. Like, I wanted to just sit there and cry.
Immediately, my first thoughts were like, oh my God, I have a little girl. I have an 8-year-old at my house. I was like, rattlesnakes in my backyard. I was like, no.
The dog is going to be okay, thank goodness. If you are bitten by a snake without wearing protective clothes or shoes, it can be dangerous. So how can you avoid these animals, and what are you supposed to do if you are bitten? Here to let us know, please welcome a man with many titles, Dr. Nick Brandehoff, one of them being Assistant Clinical Professor of Emergency Medicine and Medical Toxicology at UCSF Fresno and CRMC. Thank you so much for joining us, Doctor. So, as we said earlier, the heat is starting to rise here in the valley.
Yep.
Is that when rattlesnakes start to come out?
Yeah, generally around this time when, spring, our very short spring season converts to summer, snakes are coming out of their hibernation dens and sort of spreading out and looking for food.
So that's why they come out, because they're looking for food.
That and just to look around.
That's the season.
Mm-hmm.
So what should people do if they see a rattlesnake, if they are out for a walk, out for a hike, especially if they're with their children?
The first thing to do is just leave it alone. The snake has no reason to come at you. They're not aggressive. Their first instinct is actually to stay away from you because they consider us predators. So they may just stay still. They may try to slither off. They may rattle at you, but if you see one, just leave it be.
Okay, so speaking of the rattle, I think we have an example of how a rattlesnake sounds when it makes a rattle. Is it pretty distinctive?
Yes, I think it's pretty distinctive. Often cicadas can have a similar sound as you're hiking, and so sometimes that can sort of throw you off, but yeah, the rattle can be, if you hear anything, just freeze, take a look around, figure out where you are.
Okay, so that sound is certainly there for a reason. If you hear it, freeze.
Freeze.
And then proceed on with your hike or walk? I mean, don't disturb it, as you were saying.
Yeah,
right?
you don't essentially just leave the snake alone, don't corner it. If you give it an out, give it a path to get away, it's gonna take that path.
So, God forbid, you or your child or your animal does get bit. What do you do?
So the short of it is what we say is have a cell phone and car keys. So either call 911 to get transported, or if you're in an area where you don't have cell phone coverage, have someone drive you to an area where you can get cell phone coverage, where you can then get an ambulance sent to you.
So what have you seen, Doctor, with your knowledge, of course, working in the emergency department of CRMC in regards to snake bites? I mean, can they get pretty serious, and can they be fatal?
So we are lucky that in the United States that we get about 9,000 bites around the country per year, and we only have around 5 deaths per year. And the majority of those deaths have some extenuating circumstance. It's typically not your person just hiking or walking around that gets bit that has those serious consequences such as death, but it can be very painful. It certainly can cause some systemic signs, so low blood pressure, things like that. So it's important to seek care, but it's not something that I would have a lot of anxiety about as I was out walking around.
Okay, so that might be another question that people might ask. As the weather is getting nicer, people are going to be more outdoors with their activities. Mm-hmm. So are there specific areas throughout the valley that the rattlesnakes are going to be more susceptible to being in?
Yeah, so certainly rattlesnakes are all over the valley. They can be down low in the valley, in the orchards and things like that, but they're more concentrated more in our foothills areas and up into the mountains. So generally elevations around here of 1,000 to 7,000, 8,000 feet. You can run into them, but sort of more rocky areas, more of the hills, grassland areas, around oak trees and things like that. Sometimes you can find them, but they like to be secluded. They don't like to be where we are.
Got it. And I know we've been focusing on rattlesnakes in our discussion, but you also sent us some pictures of other kind of snakes. So we're not just talking about rattlesnakes that people have to be careful of, right?
Around this area, the most dangerous snake is by far the rattlesnake.
Okay.
We have gopher snakes, and we have king snakes, and we have some other larger snakes that can get 5 or 6 feet.
Okay, so that's the gopher that we're seeing right now.
So that's the gopher snake right there, and that is often confused for a rattlesnake. They have similar coloration. They can be quite. They can coil up and sort of bluff strike.
Are they going to make the rattle?
They actually shake their tail against the ground to mimic the rattle.
Okay.
They don't have a rattle to them, so they can't actually make that sound.
Got it. So regardless of if you're seeing, okay, and then here we have the northern Pacific rattlesnake. This is the one that you were saying will make that rattling noise.
Oftentimes they will. Occasionally, we do get bites where they never rattled because they're trying to stay. They're trying to use their camouflage to avoid being detected, and if you get too close, then they may bite without the rattle, but generally they'll rattle.
Okay, so regardless of rattlesnake, non-rattlesnake, stay away and just leave them alone, essentially, right?
Yeah, the long and short, leave the snake alone, give it an out, and then you can either continue on your way, or if the snake's not moving on the trail, just turn around and go the opposite direction. They do not chase, they're not aggressive, they're not going to come after you.
Perfect. Excellent. Thank you so much for the tips, Doctor.
Thank you.
And we hope you continue to stay safe out there as the heat rises, and it's going to be so nice out there that people are going to be out and about, so be careful out there. Well, coming up